Great. Thanks so much, Kaylin. Welcome everyone to the commercial real estate table or commercial real estate roundtable. My name is Andre Javier Berry, and I'm an account manager with the District of Columbia Sustainable Energy Utility. Our goal today is really to leave you folks with when you leave this roundtable, hopefully you have an understanding of a better understanding of the building energy performance standards, the services that are available to you all through the DCSEU, and a chance even to connect with some of your peers at the end of our roundtable. So to get started, though, I want to introduce our managing director, Ted Trabue, for a welcome to all of you. So.
Thank you very much, Javi. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ted Trabue, and for the last 10 and a half years, I've been the managing director of the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. We were established about 11 years ago to help residents, businesses, commercial institutions, universities, hospitals, everyone in the District of Columbia save energy, save some money on their bills. So we design and implement programs and run them here in the District of Columbia under contract with the Department of Energy and Environment. We're very, very happy to be here today for this special session to talk with our commercial real estate customers and to talk about building energy performance standards, probably one of the most impactful pieces of legislation that's been passed by the Council of the District of Columbia, directly impacting the buildings and the businesses that you run. And so Javier and a number of our account managers are here with us today. We're going to talk you through an in-depth conversation on building energy performance standards. We're also joined today by Teresa Bacchus of the Building Innovation Hub. She will make a presentation. We will also showcase a project that was recently completed so that we can show you some of the success that can come. The DC Sustainable Energy is here to help you with technical services and financial support to complete significant projects to help you comply with the city's new building energy performance standards. And so we thank you so much for tuning in today. There is a lot of information. We will make all of this available to you with our contact information at the end of the session. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. And I want to send a special shout out to a few of our former colleagues who I see have joined us today as well. I'm very, very happy that you've joined us. Hope all of you are doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy days to join us for this very important session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. One logistical point that I forgot to mention is that, throughout this presentation, throughout this roundtable, if you have a question, there are two options for you. Either enter your question into the chat if you have that available. Or you can raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device, look for the three dots, click that, and click raise hand. Otherwise, you can also, select, if you're on the desktop, same thing, just look for the hand, click it, and you can ask your question. We also, for our agenda today, after these intros, what we'll do is our partner, Teresa, with the Innovation Hub, we'll talk about Beps, building energy performance standards, and how that applies to you, in the commercial real estate sector, the relevance, how it impacts you. Then we will also, as Ted mentioned, talk about a success story. Our friend and customer, Craig Pritchett from Ackridge, we'll talk a little bit about the project that they did in their building at 2100 L Street Northwest. And then my colleague Patty and I will talk about the services available, the technical support and the incentives that are available to you through the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. We'll then have an open discussion, giving you a chance to ask some questions and have a more in-depth we'll break out into groups. We'll break out into two groups and have a more in-depth conversation, hearing a little bit about what you're experiencing in the field and how we can support you. So before we move on, we do have a poll that we'd like for you to fill out. The poll will be conducted through the Teams platform. So Kaylin, can you launch those polls, please? So there are actually 2 questions for you all to complete. The first is, what's your building's typology? Class A office, Class B office, retail, or mixed use, or you can add a choice. So make a selection and then click Submit Vote. And then go ahead and do that. And then Kaylin, is the second one going to pop up as well?
Yes, I'll give folks a little time to find that chat, and if you can't find it, just holler out. Just raise your hand if you can't find the chat, and we can try to help you out.
So look for that chat symbol on Teams. Click that, and then you'll see the survey that pops up.
Andre, I'm going to send out the next one. We've got a few votes that came into the first one, so I'm going to tee the second one up.
Great. Thank you, Kaylin. All right. So while Kaylin is teeing that up, it looks like so far we've got about 20 folks attending. So it looks like, of the 20, about half of you all have voted. So 9 folks have voted. 3 are Class A offices, 2 Class B offices, 1 in retail, and 3 in mixed use. Thank you very much for those of you who responded. And then the next question is, if you happen to know, so how many of you have properties? How many of you represent properties that may not meet the building energy performance standards? So the options 1 to 3, 4 to 7, 1 to 3 buildings, 1 to 3 properties, 4 to 7 properties, 8 to 10 properties, or more than 10. Again, the poll is in the chat. And if you know the answer for your particular set of for your portfolio, how many properties do you represent that don't meet the building energy performance standards at this time? All right, Kaylin, how does it look?
All right, we're looking pretty good. We've got the on the how many properties that didn't that you represent that didn't meet the Beps. About 2 folks have 1 to 3 buildings, and 1 person has more than 10. So we'll make sure to connect with you all about that. And then on the second question on that second poll, so have you recently completed an energy audit at any of your buildings? We have 2 that say yes and 1 that says no. And if I'm gonna run back to that initial question with what type of building. We've got 3 Class A, 2 Class B, 1 retail, 3 mixed use. And I'm going to open up those details to see if there's anybody who added a choice. No choices added. Okay.
All right. Great. Well, thank you for those of you who responded to the survey. Definitely appreciate it. I'd now like to introduce you all to our partner, Teresa Bacchus, the Associate Director of the Building Innovation Hub. And she will present about the Beps and building performance. So thanks so much, Teresa, and take it away.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Andre, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list. So hello, those of you I know, and welcome to those of you I know and those of you I don't know. So it sounds like we have a good, mix of typologies, building typologies and performance and folks at different stages of energy auditing or energy data exploration. So my goal today is to give you a very high level overview of the latest around Beps, and then really why building performance and energy efficiency matters, and sustainability for that matter, matters to commercial real estate beyond Beps compliance. So this will be a review for some of you, but it's important to set the tone and to bring you up to speed on the latest. And really the goal is to spend most of our time today digging in beyond that high level into real world examples so that you can talk to the folks that are doing this day to day, hear from each other, and learn how people are working through Beps, and then, kind of taking into account innovative solutions and how that factors in. So it's always tough to cover, years and years of developments in 10 minutes, but I will do my best. Next, please. For those who don't know me, as Andre said, my name is Teresa Backus. I'm the Associate Director of the Building Innovation Hub, and my role is to really outreach and engage with everyone involved in a building's life cycle across all building sectors in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region. Next, please. So a little bit about the hub for those who aren't familiar with us. We launched in October of 2020, which I can't believe it's almost been 2 years. We are a program of the Institute for Market Transformation. We were created primarily through funding by the District Department of Energy and Environment to help support our local building industry, not only navigate new building regulations like the Beps, but to simultaneously help push the sector towards meeting the district's larger green building goals and climate goals. I like to say that we intentionally sit in the middle space between the government and the market, because we help translate latest developments, and then we also try to make things easier for you to understand and implement. So we provide resources and tools, presentations, and events to help you do just that. Next, please. To kind of break down this existing ecosystem of all the different entities that are available to help you right now and where we fit in, this is kind of a good visual to see some of that. So as you can see, we have a number of partners in this effort. Of course, you're going to hear a lot more from the DCSEU today as well. So the DCSEU, is your kind of one-stop shop. So who you can call for technical one-on-one assistance with your projects. They really help you identify the available incentives and the rebates, and they work with you very closely on your buildings. We also have partners such as the DC Green Bank. And so the Green Bank launched some inaugural programs. I think they've been around about the same amount of time as we have officially. But they help owners and operators really identify project financing strategies, and we'll get into a little bit more about what they do. We also work closely with the DCRA and obviously the DC Department of Energy and Environment. So we're all here to help you. We're all partners. We're all here to help you with the Beps, to help you with questions you might have, to connect you to resources, and to really help shepherd you and your buildings through the Beps and through your energy efficiency journey. Next, please. I want to give a quick shout out to our members, because really the hubs, nothing's possible without our members. And I know there are some of you on the phone today. So I want to thank you for helping us as co-leaders in this region. Next, please. So with that, let's get into it. We'll start with a brief overview of the why Beps exists, and then get into some of the specifics. So we have heard some confusion, I think, in the market across all sectors about the different layers to the building regulations in DC. The Clean Energy DC plan was adopted in the summer of 2018, and that is the district's overarching climate and energy plan. So this really sets the roadmap to achieve the goals and the targets that the Sustainable DC 2032 initiative created. This is really the city's path to achieving carbon emissions reductions and climate resilience. The Clean Energy Omnibus Act was amended in 2018. So this existed many years prior, but the amendment is actually the actionable legislation that makes implementing Clean Energy DC possible. So the long and the short of it is, really the major goal spelled out in Clean Energy DC related to emissions is a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2032, and then ultimately net zero by 2050. And you can see that over 70% of the emissions in the district come from buildings and energy. So that is a huge percentage, and that's why there is such a focus on buildings. And then I think worldwide it's somewhere around 40%, and that's higher in urban areas. Next, please. So let's tie all of this together. Under this Clean Energy Omnibus Act, the buildings benchmarking rules were updated, and then the building energy performance standards were essentially enacted. So benchmarking, as you might be aware, is the mechanism through which you track your building's energy and water use, and it's reported annually in April of each year. So you report the previous data to the district. And then the Beps, or the building energy performance standards, are the mechanism through which you manage that energy performance in your buildings, in your existing buildings, to meet those climate goals laid out by the Sustainable DC Plan and the Clean Energy DC. Next, please. So let's get into Beps specifically. DC, as we have seen, has some very ambitious goals around carbon neutrality. And so the Beps is the mechanism to begin to chip away at that and make some real strides in reducing the emissions from the building sector. So the Beps set a minimum threshold for energy performance for existing buildings, again, existing buildings. And these thresholds or these standards are really based on and measured against that demonstrated energy performance as shown through the benchmarking. So in the district, large building owners, what is considered 50,000 square feet and up, have been benchmarking for, I think, nearly a decade. And then under the Beps, the district aggregates all of that individual performance information to establish, to find really the median level of performance for different property types. So if a building is performing at or better than that median, a building owner is not required to take action under Beps. And if you're performing under that median, we'll get into a little bit later what you need to do. Next, please. So you can see that the applicability is the timelines are size-based, both for benchmarking and Beps. What's so-called the mid-sized buildings, if you will, so buildings 25,000 square feet to 49-ish thousand square feet began benchmarking last year. So and they're right now we're in cycle 1 of Beps. Cycle 1 of Beps started January 1st, 2021. So it's already been a year and a half that we've been in cycle 1 for buildings 50,000 square feet and up. I should say private buildings 50,000 square feet and up, as well as all DC government-owned buildings 10,000 square feet and up. Cycle 2 of Beps starts January 1st, 2027, and cycle 3 starts in 2033. And that's important to know because cycle 1 will be over before we know it. It's going by really quickly, and there are a lot of things you can do now to position your buildings for cycles 2 and 3 and beyond. So next, please. With that understanding, here is a snapshot of some of the standards that have been finalized. They will not change. These are the median levels of performance that buildings must meet in order to be considered meeting the Beps. The full list is linked at the bottom of the page. You can see all different property types, but a good example here is for office buildings. The standard is an Energy Star score of 71 or a source energy use intensity of 153.7. It's important to note that if you are a building of a property type that is able to earn an Energy Star score, you use the Energy Star median as your metric. If you're not eligible to receive a score, that is when you would use, or that is when I should say, the district uses the source EUI to determine whether or not you are meeting the Beps. Next, please. I'll cover how to find that out in a little bit later. So I think we've pretty much already covered this, but if you are below that median, that's when you are not considered to be meeting the Beps, then you have to take action by choosing a compliance pathway. And one thing to point out here is that you are determined whether or not you meet the Beps based on your 2019 energy benchmarking data. Next. This is a snapshot that the district released of how the process by which buildings follow to determine compliance, and if you are, if the district says you are or are not required to enter a compliance cycle. Really, the thing to know here is that the decision has been made, or I shouldn't say this, the notices have gone out. I believe they went out about a year ago to all of the buildings, informing them of their Beps status. And that's the components here that you see in gray. So you should know by now whether or not your buildings meet the Beps. If not, that's okay. That's what we're here to help you with. And so I've been talking for a little while, and I want to pause and ask, since I can't see the chat, if there are any questions on anything so far. And then if not, is there anyone in attendance who is not sure if you have a property or work with a property where you're not sure of the Beps status? Nothing in the chat so far? Okay, so if there is anyone who is not sure of the status of the Beps status of your buildings, we'll show you how to check that a few slides from now. Or you're always welcome to send me an email. I'll put my email up again later, and we can help work with you to determine, to help you to find that information out. Oh, there's a question in the chat about why. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna read it for you if you couldn't see it, but why aren't the federal government buildings subject to the Beps program?
Great question. That's a great question. So, because really it's not district property, it's not private property to district property. However, the federal government, specifically the GSA, the General Services Administration, is currently and has been for some time working on performance standards, recommendations, guidelines. And so they are exploring this for their own properties, not just in the district, but all of their properties. There is also the National BPS, or the National Building Performance Standards Coalition, that was established by the Biden administration, that begins to think about, building performance standards on a nationwide level, implementing it through, state and local governments. It's not really a requirement, but there is some discussion, happening around what does this look like on a federal level? How can federal government buildings begin to focus on building performance, even though they're not subject to the local requirements of Beps? I don't really know the full why, but I'm sure it's very complicated. And but I do know that there is effort happening on the federal level to begin to think about those properties.
Sorry, Teresa, could you repeat the National Building?
The National BPS Coalition, the National Building Performance Standards Coalition. It is an initiative of which IMT helped to support. That is, and I forget how many jurisdictions are currently signed on to the coalition, but it's a number of state and local governments that have signed on to say, yes, this is a priority for us. We will be looking into how, building performance can be a focus of our locality for the buildings in our different jurisdictions. We agree that there should be, higher building performance. And I can put the link, or I'll send it to my colleagues to put the link for you in the chat so you can see all of those that have signed on. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So here's a brief snapshot of that compliance process. So if you have received a letter or notification from the district that your building is not currently meeting the Beps, you're required to enter a compliance cycle. This is really what it looks like visually. The main points that you must, sort of the main milestones, if you will, of a compliance process. So you are required to select a compliance pathway by April 1st of 2023. This is really important because it's coming up very quickly. You don't need to wait till April 1st to select the pathway. In fact, we recommend that you select it as early as possible in order to give yourself more time to begin then working on, the measures and implementing the measures that you need in order to improve your building performance. Let's go to the next slide, please, because it's a little bit more of a visual. So this is what it looks like in timeline format. So, the standards were set and Beps Cycle 1 started in 2021. The cycle technically ends, I should say the compliance deadline is the end of December 2026. However, that includes 1 year of benchmarking. So, really you would need to have the work completed by the end of 2025, because you have a year then of benchmarking to demonstrate your improved performance. And then at the end of 2026, there's so 2027, essentially, there is the year for the district's data analysis and enforcement to take place, where they will review everything you have submitted and completed based on your compliance cycle that you've chosen and determine whether or not you're in compliance. And then the cycle resets and we begin cycle 2. It also is important to note that at the end of cycle 1, the district will be reevaluating all of that aggregated benchmarking data during that calendar year, and likely will raise that level of performance for the next cycle of Beps. So those median Energy Star scores, and will lower the EUIs. And that's simply because as the collective building performance improves, the median then also gets more stringent. We don't know what those will be just yet. It's to be determined based on, the reevaluation at the end of this compliance or this Beps cycle. Okay, so I'm going to go pretty quickly through the pathways. There are 3 principal pathways and then generally an alternative compliance pathway bucket, if you will. I don't have time to cover all of this, but there are links here to more information in the guidebook and to further details, and we're always here to answer questions. So essentially, you can choose from what's called performance pathways. So the performance pathway or the standard target pathway, or prescriptive pathway, which is essentially a list of energy efficiency measures that you can implement. And then the alternative compliance pathways allow for unique circumstances and certain conditions that may make the principal pathways unachievable for you. So the next, please. I think I'm going to skip these actually, because in the interest of time, if you could go one more. I want to touch on, go back one. I want to touch on some penalties and fines. So as you may have heard, the greatest or the biggest fine, the maximum penalty for buildings at the end of a compliance cycle, if you are not meeting, based on the improvements that you make during your compliance cycle, the maximum penalty is $10 per gross square foot. So it's no greater than $7.5 million. But note that this is adjusted based on the improvements you do make and relative to the requirements of whichever pathway you select. So it's not a straight dollar per square foot. It depends on what you actually implement during your compliance cycle. Next, please. And then depending upon, go forward. Yeah, there we go. Depending on, which pathway you choose, there may also be some interim civil infractions. So for example, failure to meet interim milestones, failure to meet interim reporting requirements. You can apply for extensions, but it's important to note that if you are, you have to coordinate that and apply for that with the district, and there's a process to go through to do that. And then ultimately there is the option for a delay if a building cannot comply by the end of the compliance cycle. Next, please. The important takeaway here is that everything is final. The standards, those Energy Star scores, the rules, the timeline, the fines, the compliance pathways, those are final and will not change. The Beps compliance guidebook is also final. There are some implementation nuances that are still being worked out, but really that the important thing to note is that these things will not change going forward. Next, please. And another big takeaway is you have some big deadlines coming up. So again, April 1st, 2023, I really want to hammer that deadline home because that is the date by which you need to select that compliance pathway. And there's some work that has to happen before you can do that. You need to understand how your building is using energy. You need to understand a few different things in order for you to be able to, I think, confidently choose a compliance pathway. The deadline I didn't talk about yet is a year following that. Third-party data verification of your benchmarking data will also be required. So this applies to everyone who is required to benchmark, whether or not your building is must meet the Beps. Next, please. So let's talk about, I promised to talk about benefits beyond climate and benefits beyond compliance. I think it's pretty clear that the building energy efficiency, renewable energy resilience are important, and that I think it's also pretty clear that efficient building performance just makes good business sense. So obviously, as you reduce energy and water usage, you save money on your utility bills, but you're also able to realize many other operational efficiencies like simpler building controls, automatic and faster temperature and lighting adjustments, comfort controls. And another thing we've been hearing a lot of lately is that more and more companies and organizations have environmental, social, and corporate governance guidelines or mandates that include their buildings and their building stock. So, especially investor-owned buildings, though not exclusively, are really seeing these expectations and really need not only to work ESG into, your day-to-day operations, but plan ahead for what will be expected of you in the near future as it relates to those goals. There was the recent SEC draft ruling, recent-ish, that requires all public companies, or, if it moves forward, will require all public companies to disclose their emissions and their associated risks. But even if that doesn't move forward, I think it's indicative of the direction that the real estate industry is headed. And one thing we've also seen is that tenants, the general public, and really building occupants, especially those in this market, are very pretty savvy now, sustainability savvy, if you will, and have begun demanding or expecting sustainable buildings and sustainable spaces and better building performance. People want green building. Improved occupant well-being is a huge benefit of a high-performing building. And then really improving your performance now will help you future-proof your assets going forward. So as building regulations and standards continue to increase in stringency, investing now in this work will help kind of protect you, if you will, or future-proof your buildings when that stringency goes up. Next, please. So these are some things we have heard directly from building owners who have been conducting return on investment studies, looking at doing their best to kind of plan, if you will, future BEPS cycles, and then factoring their own company's ESG goals into general property planning. So we are hearing these things. And I don't know if we have time to pause, but I am curious if you want to put it in the chat to hear from you if your organization has ESG goals, a plan or a mandate, and then what you're seeing related to especially the tenant or building occupant expectations around sustainability. Next, please. So one of the final slides, what is DC thinking in terms of the future of BEPS, and how are they handling kind of unique situations, things like electrification, things like carbon. We talk a lot about reducing carbon. So, there's been some buzzes. Is BEPS changing to a carbon metric, and how does solar help? These are very nuanced answers, and they're ones that the district has been working on for quite some time. And then unfortunately, the answer is, or maybe not unfortunately, the answer is that it depends. And that's one of my least favorite answers to any questions, but it is really true because, the city does not want to limit and stifle creativity and creative approaches to sustainability. And also it's hard to account for every specific situation. So an example being solar. On-site solar generally can help you with BEPS. It helps you with the standard target compliance pathway. So really it has to do with how solar is, factored in the Energy Star portfolio manager. There's a lot of nuances to it, but essentially it improves the source EUI of your building. So the takeaway here is that the district is working on all of these things and will be answering all of these things now and in the future, and we will be updating you as we begin to get answers for this. Next, please. And then the final slide before I show you some resources is the future BEPS cycles. So I have the highlighted dates here in the lower right corner. No one really knows what the future, median Energy Star scores or EUIs will be. But like I said before, we're pretty confident those will get more stringent as the collective building improvements or performance, I should say, also improves. So it's important to think now. It's important to start conversations now with the district, with the hub, with the DCSEU, with the DC Green Bank. Reach out to DCSEU, reach out to Andre, get conversations started as early as possible to not only think about how to get you over this initial BEPS cycle hump or this initial energy audit hump, but how to really plan for a future of building performance, because Beps isn't going away. It's only going to get, it's a bigger and bigger part of the conversation. So it behooves you to get started as soon as possible. Next, please. So let's just go through some resources. This is the one I talked about earlier. These are the lower right corner is the website you can go to check to see if your building meets the Beps. And if you are having trouble, figuring that out, please reach out to me. Again, we can also help, research that for you and let you know what your building's Beps status is. Next, please. The district has a lot of really helpful resources. There is Beam, or the knowledge base, where there are a lot of articles. The guidebook lives here. There's a cost benefit study that DOEE conducted that lives here. The help desk is very responsive, so you can submit any question and they get back to you very quickly. This is where there is a link for you to submit your choice for the compliance pathway, for the Beps compliance pathway. And then there's an owner portal, which is kind of your one-stop shop for all of your communications with DC related to benchmarking and Beps. There's also some really good energy audit tools, links to how to submit an energy audit that is compliant with the prescriptive pathway, and a whole lot more that we can't cover today. Next, please. So we have a lot of great, Hub has a lot of great Beps resources. We have some good, what we call plain speak, where we actually break everything I just covered down into plain English. Helps takes the regulatory language and makes it a little simpler to understand. We have some common errors and benchmarking resources, and then we have some good code Beps overlay documents that explain how the two things are related and how one impacts the other. Next, please. We also have some really great new resources we just released. So we have a compliance pathway wizard that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. We also refer to it as the Harry Potter sorting hat, where you can, walk through a series of questions and it will help you understand perhaps what compliance pathway is most suitable for your situation. And then we have timelines that are associated with each pathway, so you know what you need to do by when. We also have some other pretty great resources that I won't cover in the interest of time. And then I think the last slide is I want to talk a little bit more about the Green Bank. They are a key partner to DCSEU and the Hub, and they provide, not only very competitive financing rates, but innovative financing products, and then access to capital and access to money to help buildings retrofit and meet the Beps. So they have something called Navigator, for example, which is a pre-development loan that can really help jumpstart energy efficiency projects. So early stages of a project, not just construction and implementing. They have a product called Clear, which is the commercial loan for energy efficiency and renewables. They also administer PACE. And then they have some community initiatives and a program that I believe is called Open Solicitation, which allows you to propose creative ideas for financing and work with the Green Bank on that. Next, please. So I'm sorry, Andre, I know I went way over time. I don't know if you still want to do the polls, but this is my contact information. If you have any follow-up questions, we are happy to answer any questions you have.
There was a question from Jeffrey, Teresa, that I'll read. Can you give some input on how DC is going to judge compliance by those trying to use the standard target pathway and dealing with the Energy Star impacts of reduced building occupancy as compared to 2019?
Yeah, so they do have special considerations for COVID impacts. It really depends on what is driving, I think, that building occupancy, because there are kind of different considerations depending on if it's COVID related, if it's a change in property type, if it's a change in owner, so there's a few different ways that the district has built into their rules to account for the situation. So why don't we follow up afterwards, because I'd like to know a little bit more about your situation so that I can better answer that question, because like I said, the answer is sort of, it depends.
And why don't we go ahead, Teresa? I think the poll will be actually helpful for us in terms of just, serving you all, the customers that are on this roundtable today. Why don't we go ahead with the poll, because I think it's just, it helps us figure out how to best be of service to our customers out there.
Sure. So the first poll, I believe there are two. The first is an open-ended question. What do you need more information on? And I believe that this one we're not, it will be anonymous answers. So this is, you know, I don't think we're going to be showing the results. I'm not sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. So we'd love to hear from you. Like, this is a lot of technical information. I know folks are at different stages in their building process and their project process. So what do you need information on? How can we, DCSEU, we, the hub, we, the larger team, help you with right now?
Sorry to
Not just
interrupt
in the
there,
call
Teresa.
today.
I see that the poll is listed as non-anonymous, just clarifying.
It's not anonymous, but private.
Okay, yeah, so on previous polls, people's names were associated with their answers, but that's not going to be the case on this one, Caitlin?
Their names will be associated. Their answers won't be, they won't be able to, everyone won't be able to see their answers.
Okay.
So we'll give a little bit more time for this one. I'll defer to my colleagues on the call to help manage the timing of that. Just let me know when we should move on to the next one.
I'll submit another one because I'll submit the next one because this one's an open one and the next one is a multiple choice. Just I'll submit it now, but you can go ahead and tee it up.
Great. So the next question is, how would you prefer to get this information? So do you find emails helpful? Would you rather just jump on the phone one-on-one with us to try to work through some of these issues? Our webinar is helpful. What other resources? Maybe you would like to see more website resources. And this should be able to select as many as you want, I believe, or you can type in your own.
Yes, and I have a couple completions from the first one, so I'll someone says solar as more information. Someone says using the standard compliance pathway and future proofing against changes in Energy Star benchmarking. In parentheses, we have COMAR updates, etc. And then also technologies that help reduce overall energy consumption.
Great. Great.
And as the other results trickle in from the question, how do you prefer to get information? We have emails at 2 votes so far, and then website at 2 votes so far. So none for follow-up calls and webinars or virtual meetings. So we'll continue to leave this one open. I think there was another vote that just came in. Yep, that went to emails.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. Why don't we go ahead then? We can leave that poll open in case folks want to still fill it in. Thank you so much, Teresa. You know, her contact information is there for folks who want to follow up, but we'll also send this presentation around. Now we want to, so Teresa covered the, you know, what is Beps, the compliance with the Department of Energy and the Environment. We are going to kind of continuing on that theme. What we want to talk about a little more now is, you know, what resources are available for you to help achieve compliance. You know, what are the resources available to help you take the steps to make your buildings more energy efficient. So what I'd like to do is introduce our guest, another guest speaker, one of our customers who has worked with us very closely in the past. His name is Craig Pritchett, the Development Chief Engineer at Acreage. Craig has actually been working there for more than 40 years. So he explained that if you know, any and all renovation and construction projects, he's probably had a hand in it. So we've invited him today to talk about one of the projects that we worked on together, at 2100 L Street Northwest. And so, you know, we have the privilege today to, you know, just get a glimpse of the breadth and depth of Craig's knowledge in the industry and with energy, as he talks about the work that was done at 2100 L Street Northwest. So, Craig, can you hop on and tell us a little bit more about this project?
Yes, thank you, Andre, for the opportunity to join this roundtable and
Thank
to
you.
brag about our project at 2100 L. It, it was a it's been a very smooth process in working with you and your firm, your team. Uh, it, any questions that come up, they're immediately answered. And in order to reach the benchmarks we had to meet. We had a list, starting with lighting. We, depending on the areas and the location, the light density could be as low as 0.03. And then, towards areas like exit doors, exit areas, it might be 12.2. So you and your team providing the requirements and in the different locations that we needed to meet it helped us to design the lighting, and while meeting that criteria and of course maintaining the safety measures for egress in the building. we were we have we have found that this was a new construction, is that on a base building project, we build the backbone in for a lighting control system. And as we do that, we will allow clients to tag onto it if they so choose or use their own. But we take that lighting control system and we will control other lighting like in stairways on landings and turn it off. And as soon as someone makes it 2 to 3 steps down the staircase, the motion sensor picks it up and there's no delay in the light coming on, so it's safe. We'll use the similar method in back hallways, towards loading docks, areas like that, so that we can reduce the lighting. And another big area that we find is the main lobby and the amenity areas like the gymnasium, uh, where there can be a lot of after hours usage. So we can program that usage right into into a touchpad and set it up to operate for a certain number of hours, because I'm sure we've all had a party somewhere in the building and they forget to turn the lights out. So it automatically turns it out, and it'll also perform a sweeper action to go through the building and look for anything that is assigned to be off and turn it off unless manually overridden. So we find that to be very useful, and by putting the different touch pads in 2 to 3 different areas for the different gymnasiums, main lobbies, amenities, it allows you to activate the minimum required lighting for an after hours usage. And Teresa struck a chord that I immediately thought about this building. Was the clients are definitely getting far savvier and energy wise. And at this particular building, we've had a client that took it and actually used the lighting control system and hooked it into their DOS boxes. So if it's occupied, it maintains a set point. If someone gets out and leaves for 5 to 8 minutes, it'll automatically raise the cooling set point 1 degree or lower the heating set point a degree. And if it's longer, and if it's not activated within that time period, it turns it off. So you're absolutely right. The clients know and see and are demanding a higher level of sophistication in the buildings. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The simpler it is, the easier it is to operate and troubleshoot. So that's fairly much what we have done with the lighting. And another part of our to-do list for this was keeping was selecting good equipment. And we did install the maglev chillers in the building. And we also installed pumps and inline circ pumps that have the VFD built onto the drive. So that saves a lot of time and energy in installation, but it also on the display of the pump, you can see what that pump is doing in GPM. So you get a good feel for, is your system running in balance or is it getting out of balance? We also needed to commission these equipment, and at Ackridge, if it goes in our building, any piece of equipment, it is fully commissioned from start to finish under all modes. Because we find that as your documentation requires, that full commissioning is really an asset. It's time consuming up front, but it helps unweed any problems that could not be seen if you didn't check it out. We also do the same thing with the small units, like the split system for the fire command center. That's like a 1-ton unit, all the way to the health club. I believe that's a 7.5 or an 8-ton. That one's a water source unit. So we're able to divide everything into pockets that require air conditioning or lighting above normal business hours. So we're able to activate it remotely, and if it is activated remotely for a client after hours usage, it's programmed to automatically turn off in a pre-selected set of time. It's typically 4 hours to keep it from running away. We set the system up to operate for the chilled system. We set the condenser water system to operate to the best needs of the chiller. We do not set the tower to dictate the temperature to the chiller. We want the chiller to tell the tower what kind of temperature it needs. I can't think of anything else at the moment.
Yeah. No problem. Like, Craig, why don't we pause? I know you covered a lot there. Just wanted to open it up to see, for one, kind of thanks for sharing what you've shared so far. Who in the audience, what questions might you all have for Craig in terms of, what the work that they did or the measures they installed, or, the process of getting incentive, like what questions come to people's minds after hearing Craig talk? Clear explanations, Craig. One question I have for you, Craig, is that, now that you've we completed this project together, what else, what technologies or what other projects are you looking forward to, or working on at this point?
I'm currently in the finishing stages at 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue, the Mills building. We took the penthouse off, added 3 floors, and put in a whole new DOA-based system there while it was occupied. And I'm currently involved with the Milken family projects on 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the 3 banks that face Pennsylvania Avenue. We are working on those. We literally lifted the buildings in the air, dug the foundations out, and lowered it by between 28 to 30 feet to accommodate a theater. Yes, it's quite a project.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're running several different styles there, VRV, and of course 4-pipe systems. The other major project I'm working on is at the Stacks 100 D Street. It's phase 1 has between 11 and 1,200 different apartments.
Hmm.
So we're working on that one at the same time, and a few small projects.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, we've got two great questions from the attendees, Craig. So let me ask them. And let me ask you them. So the first is, did you notice any major differences in manufacturers for the equipment that you assessed?
Typically, the major differences from the higher tier manufacturers, the biggest differences I see even amongst those is you need to, as you review the submittals, see what comes standard with one piece of equipment versus what is an option with a different manufacturer. They're usually fairly close, but they're not always compared appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Craig. And then the second question is that this is in terms of the ROI, right? Did the project have to achieve a quick ROI for the energy savings measures, or were you willing to accept longer payback periods?
Well, quicker is always better, and it's as the slide shows, we've been rather favorable on that. So we tend to go for the long-term benefit,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, short-term is acceptable also.
Great. Well, Craig, thank you for taking the time to talk through, what you've done at 2100 L Street Northwest, and we look forward to, working with you some more in the future on hopefully on some of these new projects. And just to the folks in attendance, just want to encourage you all. We'll provide information, but follow up with us at the DCSEU to start exploring, discussing projects that you might have in place or projects that you have planned. We're here to support you and find ways to provide incentives to projects as well. So thank you so much, Craig.
If I may, Andre.
Oh yes, absolutely.
This is the second project we've done with you in the last 2 years approximately. And when it's something brand new, it's a little intimidating and you're curious as to how well it's going to go. But every time we had a question, it was answered straightforwardly. It was never really extra work or cumbersome to work with you and your team. And quite frankly, it was quite enjoyable.
Oh, thank you so much, Craig. And I think my colleague Lee Harold, who I think might be on this, she's also an account manager. I believe she was the lead account manager from the DCSEU. So the kudos go out to her. So I believe she might still be on this
I'm
call.
on here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was. Thanks a lot, Craig, and it was an amazing project. And as you guys can see from the numbers, it did produce a lot of savings, a lot of first-year energy savings for Ackridge. But yeah, Ackridge, we definitely have several projects in the pipeline coming up, and this is one of many. And we've had a great relationship with them. So all the projects are always of this size and always of this capacity, so they never come short. They always come with nice, wide, big projects. So this is great.
Thanks, Lee. And thank you again, Craig.
My pleasure.
All right. So kind of moving on. Oops, here we go. What I'd like to do now is to my colleague Patty Boyd and I will run over a review for you all and really just explain some of the services that are available through the DCSEU. First of all, take into account that we acknowledge that, and we recognize. Oh, Patty, hi Patty. So again, I'm an account manager at DCSU, and I'll let Patty just do a quick intro of herself as well.
Yeah, hi everyone. I see some very familiar names on the list of attendees. Patty Boyd, Director of Technology and Innovation here at the DCSEU, trying to figure out how to help you with the new things that are coming along and try to align Beps, DCSEU's Beps support with your needs. So yeah, thanks for having me today, and Andre, keep going.
Sure. So we recognize and acknowledge that you all have goals that, for many of you, you want to continue to reduce, streamline your operations and maintenance costs, perhaps create more comfortable spaces for your tenants. You want to keep your tenants, and perhaps if you don't have full occupancy, you're trying to draw in new tenants. And even from a staffing perspective, right? Some of you are thinking about how do I maintain staff? How do I attract staff to our company? And we're sure that you've probably got a few initiatives going on, like that you've probably got an energy efficiency project that you're getting started on, or that you're planning, or perhaps a new construction project, or you're preparing for major capital improvements. And even in the back of our mind, you're thinking, how do I continue to build capacity within my staff? How do I give opportunities for learning to the staff at my organization? So to kind of reiterate what Teresa had mentioned before, our account managers on the ground have been hearing very regularly about some of this environmental, social, and governance criteria that corporations are really looking at closely. That perhaps there might be some reporting that they have to do, but there's really an emphasis on it in terms of incorporating kind of energy efficiency savings measures, carbon reduction measures as part of how a company operates, how they run their buildings, as a way to attract investments, attract investors. But even if the company you're working for isn't a publicly traded company, tenants are looking for these more efficient buildings. They want to be associated with buildings that are run sustainably. So what we at the DCSEU have, in many ways, some of our goals really align very closely with what you have. What we have here are the different goals that the DCSEU has. We are kind of mission or kind of these are kind of targets that we have, focuses that we have, and in particular, I want to focus on the things that are, outlined in red, that will align with some of what I've mentioned. The first being that, we serve the residents, commercial, and institutional sectors of DC. We are here to serve them. Part of our goal is to help them reduce energy consumption. The reduction of electricity consumption, and in the past, gas consumption. In turn, this helps us reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the city, in the district. In addition, we are tasked with creating green jobs for district residents. That again is what we're kind of part of our responsibility. And in turn, by creating those jobs and reducing energy expenses for businesses in the district, we can also strengthen the local economy. So the services that Patty and I will kind of describe for you now are different ways, approaches that we can help you achieve, some of these goals, to basically achieve the goals that we have outlined. So first is that we have technical support, and not only this says it's no cost technical support, but any person, any resident or commercial entity in the city, if you pay an electricity bill or a gas bill, there's a tiny charge every month that you pay on your bill, and that actually is what helps fund the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. So through that funding, part of what we offer is technical support. And so you'll see that, so we can help you identify opportunities in your buildings. We can help you find solutions and analyze projects. So an example of how we find opportunities is we can look at your bills. We can look at some of your AMI data to help identify opportunities to, reduce your consumption. Or we can, do walkthroughs of buildings and really kind of identify, pinpoint, list some of the things that can be done to reduce your consumption. In terms of finding solutions, we can really provide an objective review of the different equipment that vendors may be proposing or offering to implement, looking at design and any of the commissioning claims. We can just be a kind of an objective third party taking a peek at those things to give you another assessment. And in terms of analysis, our engineering team works to calculate, the savings that the different measures that you implement will generate, both the energy savings and the potential financial savings. I'm going to pause right there just to see if Patty wants to kind of highlight anything or cover something that I may have missed.
No, that's great job. This is kind of in lines with what Craig was saying. Like we knew the lighting power density code requirements, so we were able to provide that to him so that he could plan his lighting design around that. So there's a lot of the things in the code that we understand and can try to help explain or try to at least facilitate, you being able to gain the information that you need to do your design properly so that it gets permitted and you're able to operate it. Yeah, great job so far. Yep.
So what I want to also emphasize is that there's that technical assistance. We also really value building a partnership with you all. We see our customers as partners, and while we work on specific projects, like Craig had mentioned, we've had 2 projects with Acridge the last couple of years. Once we work on a project with you, we hope to work with you on future projects. So look at this as really a long-term relationship. How can we help you strategically moving towards the future, kind of make your operations and energy use? How do we approach it strategically? We want to partner with you on that. So in addition to the technical assistance, we also provide incentives. And we offer both fixed incentives and custom incentives. So the fixed or prescriptive incentives, as you heard, there's incentives for lighting, for motors, HVAC, refrigeration. There's food service and vending. We've also got some incentives now on electric lawn care equipment. So that's a new program that has come in place. And for some of our lighting, there are instant rebates as well. So those are kind of fixed. Those are on our website. You'll see them listed there, how much it is per unit of the individual technology. But also we do offer custom rebates as well. And this basically, custom rebates cover, these are incentives that are calculated on basically any operational or any operational measures that you take and the operational changes that you make that actually save energy, or even just like the mechanical or the installed measures that you incorporate. So we're not limited to specific technologies. The goal here is, what are you achieving energy savings? Are you taking steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? And if those are taking place, there are incentives available. So those are some custom rebates that we have. I'll let Patty talk a little bit about what something we call pay for performance.
So, on those lines, getting involved with us as early as possible is really beneficial. So we can give you technical assistance to help you try to figure out the best piece of equipment or the best solution that you might have. We act as a neutral third party, kind of to sniff test a little bit if you're getting different bids from different contractors, we can look at those to try to give you a neutral view of what might be the best solution for you. In terms of pay for performance, this is a big thing before COVID, because we had prior energy use that was standard operating procedure COVID kind of put a wrench in that, but now we have kind of a COVID baseline. So we take a set baseline of energy use. So we would like it to be a year. And then there's some intervention, right? You're doing a controls change, you're putting in new equipment, you're duct sealing, you're cleaning filters, there's a lot of different things that could happen that it's very difficult to calculate energy savings for. So then we start looking at the utility bills after. So we get a baseline, we do a regression analysis, like a statistical analysis using heating degree days and cooling degree days. And then we look at the new data after you've made whatever changes there are. And then the difference between what a regression model says you should be using and the energy usage that you actually have, we can pay you for an incentive based on that. So there's a little bit of math that goes into that. And, we need access to your utility data. But it's a good way to be able to claim, or for us to claim energy savings, to provide you with an incentive for the work that you're doing for measures that were traditionally really difficult to calculate. So if anybody has a question on that, we can talk about that later, but there you go. How much per kilowatt hour is a one-time rebate? Go ahead.
Okay, good.
I might not know the latest yield value.
Yeah. How much per kilowatt is the
Is Crystal?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going to jump in. Hi, everybody. Crystal McDonald, Director of Account Management and Workforce Development. But the yield really depends on the available budget we have at that particular time of the year. Right now, we have some pretty lucrative yields, and you can work with your account manager. Oh, so you're asking about the PEPCO, the rate. Are you asking about the PEPCO rate?
PEPCO is giving $100 a megawatt hour. What is the DCSEU giving?
Yeah, so that fluctuates depending on whether you're a commercial low-income family, and but we're around plus or minus depending on the project and the available funding we have.
Right.
Yeah, plus or minus around that PEPCO rate.
Yeah, for commercial, traditionally we've been around the $30 a megawatt hour rate, but that all depends on the budget that we have available, what our pipeline looks like, how far we are from our savings goals. There's a lot of things that go into it, but you could use a $30 as a starting point. It shouldn't be less than that.
Yeah, and we're running a little bit higher than that right now.
Yeah, 30 cents per kilowatt hour. Yeah.
But talk to us because we're running higher than that right now.
But we are running higher right now, depending on the project. So if you have a project that you're working on, like I said, please get involved with us as early as possible so that we can work with you to get the highest incentive possible and the most technical assistance that we can, to add to the value of our offering.
Yes.
Thank you.
I did want to point out again, while we provide, we have an online rebate center. So if you go to, our website, you can find that information there. Just if you happen to be a small business, there are enhanced rebates for small businesses and, affordable multifamily. And talk with us early. Talk with us as early as you can. We can, continue the conversation, get it started, and see what we can get for you. I also just wanted to, as a reminder, some of you might have access to financing mechanisms within your company, your organization. While the DCSEU provides, covers some of the cost, the incremental cost for these technologies, efficient technologies. There is another one of our partners, the DC Green Bank. So make sure that you take a peek at what they offer in terms of really good rates for financing energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. And two things I want to quickly highlight are simply that I'd mentioned, some of you might be thinking about your workforce, how to draw in talent and how to maintain talent. Two programs that the DCSEU also runs. The first is a workforce development program, and this is really where we partner with local businesses at no cost to, so these are local businesses, certified business enterprises in the city. And at no cost to them, they can take on what we call an extern for about 5 to 7 months to provide mentorship, provide some training. And these are for this is to provide district residents with opportunities. Maybe they're looking to change careers or looking to enter into the energy efficiency field, renewable energy. This is a way for them, for a lot of businesses to bring on new folks, or to bring on somebody to cultivate some loyalty, help someone kind of start a new career path. And wanted to point out that about 85% of the participants in our program continue on the full-time position. So that's the DCSEU Workforce Development Program. In addition to that, we've also got, this is what I like to think of as a capacity building initiative through the DCSEU, where, for certified business enterprises in DC. So these are businesses that are basically headquartered in DC. It's an opportunity to, for your staff, your employees, it's a way to get training on different aspects of energy efficiency, renewable energy, the green economy, just a way to gain new skills and build capacity within the company, or for that person. So for example, if you need a new certified energy manager, right? This is a training program, no cost, in which staff can participate and build their skill set. So again, you can find more information about that at the DCSEU website. And just through that program, 125 certified business enterprises in DC have already participated during 2021, taking advantage of these programs, and really creating opportunities for staff to develop. So I'm going to pause, or actually the last slide I wanted to get into just some things for folks to be aware of, that the DCSEU, there have been some changes to what we're able to do. And one of the primary things is that we're no longer able to provide incentives for new gas equipment. So that is no longer anything that we can do. There may be some funding available for operations and maintenance of gas equipment, but it's really limited to that. Also, in the case of there is some additional funding for affordable housing through the retrofit accelerator, affordable multifamily. I touched base on the Train Green, but also that there is a training program in addition to the Train Green, or is actually as part of the Train Green, that looks at the 50,001 ready. It's that ISO 50,001 energy management system training that the DCSEU provides as well. So that's a lot of information that we covered, but it's easy to get started. You can actually schedule time with the account managers to start discussing options, start discussing projects that you have. Kaylin just dropped in the chat that you can click on the link to schedule a time with me to begin talking about projects that you're working on, or what efficiency efforts you want to take on. And let's see here. Want to thank you all for your time. We've got about a little less than 8 minutes, about 7 minutes left in the presentation, or in the roundtable. So I think what I want to do right now is actually pause and see what questions folks have about the many things we've talked about today. Okay. So Adam, and I may need to get my colleagues to help with this, but has there been any consideration of meshing Beps efforts with the new lead existing building reporting requirements. So Patty or Teresa, what do you know?
Maybe Teresa has a better line on that one. I can probably answer the next one, Teresa, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I know, I believe the lead existing buildings requirements were raised in a few points of discussion. Actually, Patty, I think on the task force at one point.
Yeah.
The Beps task force. I know that, for lead existing buildings, so for example, ARC, or using the plaque, the dynamic plaque, I think the dynamic plaque is the old name for it. It is a way to track energy and water usage, but it's mostly relative to the lead rating system requirements, which is based on a very specific ASHRAE standard. However, there is certainly overlap, and I know that the district is aware of that functionality. So I'm not sure yet how that conversation has progressed further, but if we hear anything, we will definitely pass it along.
Yeah, and I would just add that, that Beps was set up, the legislation was set up with benchmarking Energy Star Portfolio Manager as the, as the database, as the place where all of this information is held. Back in the Clean and Affordable Energy Act in 2008, that was the tool that was used, and has been the tool that has been used since then. The ARC and Mark Bryan is probably on here, but I don't know if he's able to talk. But the lead, the lead was happening at the same time, but not ARC, right? Like ARC was 2017, after 2017. I'm not sure. I don't have the date, but they are two individual systems. I don't know how they're going to mesh them, but just because Beps, not even Beps, but benchmarking has been in existence in the district for so long, the tool that was available when that was set up is Portfolio Manager, and it is still the tool that benchmarking, is for a lot of these building energy performance standards is based on. So I don't.
Yeah.
That doesn't clarify.
I can just add to that, Patty. The ARC system pulls data from Energy Star, but it's a one-way. It's a one-way trip, so it's really just for automated reporting. And as far as I know, that there really haven't been any plans to link lead for existing building certification to BEPS compliance. I think it's pretty complicated.
Thank you, Mark. We have a question from Lucas. Lucas, thanks so much for joining. The impact of installing solar on a building is relatively small in regards to improving the Energy Star score. You mentioned that this is one of the issues Beps is working to address. Are there any plans to make solar more impactful on reaching Beps compliance?
Teresa, do you want to? I can give us. I can try. To talk to that for a second. But if you have an answer already figured out, then go ahead.
Other than to say, it's definitely top of mind for district staff. Solar is a priority in the district for everybody. And there are a lot of other programs and initiatives that address the benefits of solar and try to capture, and incentivize and encourage solar. And there is the awareness that, probably Beps and solar need to talk a little bit better than they do now. I think everyone's talking about it. They're trying to figure out how to, what that relationship looks like. I don't have specifics on what that is yet, but it's certainly, solar is still certainly a priority for the district. What were you gonna?
Well, I can add a little bit that Beps is primarily an energy efficiency, greenhouse gas reduction with your equipment that is being operated in your building. That's the kind of the purpose of Beps, where solar is, it's kind of fuel switching. It's not, you're not reducing the energy usage of your lighting just because you put on solar. You're switching to solar being the fuel source. But Beps is really trying to get your EUI the energy usage at your building, all of the equipment to reduce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of the pathways, except for the standard target pathway, use site EUI as the metric that needs to be reduced. The standard target pathway uses source EUI, so solar does have a bigger impact if you're going for the standard target pathway. It also has an impact on your Energy Star store calculation for the next step cycle. So that's a lot of nuance and kind of specifics and detail. I haven't been in talks with DOE lately about if they're willing to have solar be more, to count towards the other pathways, but because it's a site versus source thing, solar is a one-to-one on site, and then you get a big credit for it on source. So it's nuanced to how these things are calculated, and the purpose of Beps is to try to get you to do less lighting when you can, control your lighting, put it on the VFDs, get more efficient equipment, not necessarily just switch whatever you're doing to having sun be your energy, if that helps.
And so on that note, I want to we're about to close, but I want to thank everyone for attending. On behalf of the DCSEU, the Innovation Hub, IMT, thank you all for attending. In terms of next steps, we, as Kaylin said at the beginning, will provide the presentation to all the folks that have attended. Also, please, there is in the chat and also in the presentation, there's a link to set up set up a meeting with me, so that we can talk about what your projects that you're working on. We can start looking at incentive opportunities for you and the measures that you want to implement. So please, take the time to schedule a meeting and we can start the conversation. And again, just really want to emphasize, we're here. We have resources. We want to partner with you. We want to be a kind of a strategic partner as you figure out how to make your operations and maintenance more effective, more efficient, and really we want to help you meet your goals. So thank you again for attending. Feel free to reach out to us at any time, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.